hand to the nation, because there was no inkling, no clue whatsoever that such a monstrous and pernicious bill was coming. And although it was described as a national security bill, someone told me that probably it should be more accurately described as a national insecurity bill for Najib, because it was definitely a reflection of his sense of a lack of security. And it has very far-reaching effects, which I'm sure our other speakers will elaborate on. But I think the major thing will be, number one, it usurps the powers of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Because normally emergency powers are only invoked when there is a proclamation of emergency, and it can only be done under Article 150. In this case, the Prime Minister is arming himself with such emergency powers if there is a declaration of a security area under the National Security Council bill. And it is a usurpation of a cabinet as well, because the cabinet must advise the Prime Minister to advise the Yang di-Pertuan Agong for a proclamation of emergency if a situation arises. It has done away completely with the need for any cabinet involvement. All you need is a kitchen cabinet, or a slightly more than a kitchen cabinet, involving the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, who is also the Home Minister, the Defence Minister, and the Multimedia Minister, the man in charge of trying to shape public opinions. These are the 4 ministers in cabinet, together with 3 other government officials: the Chief Secretary, the Inspector General of Police, and the Chief of the Armed Forces. So you have a 7-member committee which will decide, which will be able to advise the Prime Minister to declare a security area where anything could take place, where there will be immunity, but you cannot hold them to a meaningful account, where they can arrest without warrant and take any draconian and drastic actions violating human rights. And it is usurpation of the powers of Sabah and Sarawak with regard to autonomy powers, because more and more, as you can see, these are becoming the major issues in Sabah and in Sarawak. Greater autonomy, in particular in Sarawak, we are talking about the education, the use of English, question of NCR, national customary, native customary rights land, and allocation of resources, 20% petroleum oil. Time will come when this will be. This has nothing to do with the national security. But if you look at the bill, what is national security? It will appear that it will cover anything under the sun. And it refers to sovereignty, territorial integrity, defense, which are very safe areas. Socio-political stability. What do you mean by socio-political stability? If you're not happy with Najib, is that a threat to socio-political stability, and therefore a threat to national security? Economic stability, 2.6 billion ringgit donation scandal, the 1MDB scandal. Are these threats to economic stability, strategic resources, national unity? There's even a wider, completely difficult to pin down, and other interests relating to national security. So when they can advise the Prime Minister that a national security is at stake, declare a security area, and then I say hell will break loose. Hell will break loose. This, so far, I think this is attention has been focusing on what happens when a security area is declared, completely usurping the powers of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, as I said, and the cabinet. But I think there are other areas which should also deserve attention, and these are areas where there is no need for a declaration of security area, because under the bill, it is provided that the National Security Council will have other functions, will have 4 specific functions, and one of them is to advise the Prime Minister on the declaration of security areas. There are 3 other functions: to formulate policies and strategic measures on national security, to monitor the implementation of the policies and strategic measures on national security, and to perform any other functions relating to national security. And then you have section 16, which says that the Director General shall have powers, shall have such duties and powers as may be imposed or conferred upon him by the Council to implement policies and strategic measures on national securities, which means the Council itself will become a parallel government. You will have powers over and above the police, the army, the state governments. They can even direct state governments to do things, and all government agencies. It will be a super parallel government, which is unheard of, completely against our understanding of a government which is accountable to the people, a democratic governance. So we are seeing a monster infrastructure, a parallel government developing from this bill, which has not received sufficient attention. Why should we have? Is it necessary for such a national security council to come into place? And if so, there should be a debate, there should be consultation, not only with all political parties, not only with civil societies, but also with the state governments, because this will mean in the fringing into the rights and the powers of existing state governments, not only Sabah and Sarawak, but also in Peninsular Malaysia. So this is a frightening bill. The more you look at it, the more frightened you get. And the reasons they've given, they've explained, is that this is to deal with terrorism. I think there is no objection with regard to enactment of special powers in order to deal with the threat of terrorism, especially with the emergence of Islamic State, with the terrible things they do, or with regard to the intrusion into the sovereignty of Malaysia in Sabah. But then the law must be specific. There should not be a National Security Council, it should be a National Anti-Terrorism Council, for instance. So I think there is a need for public opinion to wake up immediately to try to stop this National Security Bill from becoming law. It is now in the Dewan Negara. It has gone through Dewan Rakyat. It is now in Dewan Negara, and I hope that the Prime Minister will withdraw it. If the whole idea is to fight the national terrorism, amend it so that it is specifically dealing with terrorism and not a very wide ambit. And otherwise, I think our lawyers or society activists and leaders will have to think in terms of how to challenge it in a court of law. Finally, I think it's the most unfortunate. Today is an important day, Human Rights Day. We should be celebrating human rights. Instead, we are seeing probably the darkest day for human rights in terms of legislation. I think this is the biggest threat to human rights and civil liberties that we are facing as far as the National Security Council Bill is concerned. And with that, I think I'll pass it to the other speakers.
Thank you, YB. If I can now have Dr. Abdul Aziz Bari take the mic. Dr. Abdul Aziz, you have come up with a very comforting message for the Malaysians after the National Security Bill was passed, saying that it's not really the end of the matter. Perhaps you can start off by telling us, are there any practical steps that we can take as citizens from here on out?
Thank you, Madam Moderator, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Happy to see you guys coming in full force, because I think, given what my colleague Yang Berhormat Hanipa told me from his out-of-town activities, most people, especially in the kampungs area, simply, still unable to make sense of what this National Security Council is all about. So seeing you people, friends, then in full force is a good thing, and obviously there is hope still to stop this monstrous bill, as said by YB Siang just now. Now, first of all, let me probably make a few notes that we have had several councils before. In 1969, after the emergency was declared by the Yang Tuan Agong. Well, so of course, it's a matter of discussion whether it was really an emergency or just a way to kick a sitting prime minister out. But there was this National Operation Council, NOC, Majlis Gerakan Negara, chaired by the then Deputy Prime Minister Tun Razak, to run the country. And he basically ran the country through decrees, using the powers declared by the Yang Tuan Agong under emergency under 150. And then we have later we have this National Economic Council formed by Dr. Mahathir when the country was hit by economic crisis in 1997. But the one thing about that particular council, I mean the Economic Council, it was very much part and parcel of the government. So I agree with YB Siang point that the problem with this one is that we have got now a monster being created by Parliament to take over the cabinet. So if we had something like NEC, yeah, Majlis Tindakan Ekonomi Negara, way back in 1997, it was still basically part of the cabinet and was still basically cabinet committee. So it's the government who is basically responsible to the House. But the problem with this one is that it is a monster created by Parliament to take over the cabinet, and that is the problem because you have the Prime Minister, the Deputy, Minister of Defence, Minister of Home Affairs, together with this unelected public servant. We have got the Chief Secretary of the Government, Ketua Sesar Negara there. We have got Panglima Angkatan Tentera, the Chief of Defence Forces, and the IGP. So they are not elected people, and I think the problem or the worry is that how can we surrender the running of the country to unelected people, because according to the constitution, not just in Malaysia but throughout the Commonwealth, the Westminster world, it is the cabinet, the sitting government that hold the mandate of the people, and they are answerable to the House. So this is the problem with the way I look at it from the constitutional point of view, is it interferes with the main framework of the constitution, which allows us as the taxpayers, as the population, as the voters, to make the government of the day responsible to us through our MPs. But with this monster, we suddenly have this possible scenario whereby we have got, you may have a situation whereby the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of the entire cabinet. So we have got just a group of people, his loyalists, his or her loyalists, sitting in the cabinet, making or declaring things, continuing to run the country. So this is, I think, the main danger with this National Security Council. At the moment, yes, we have got what is known as a National Security Council, Majlis Keselamatan Negara, an agency under the PM department. It's not a statutory body as such, but now with the passing of the bill at the Dewan Rakyat, we have passed through the stage whereby it would eventually could become a full-fledged body, which can be used by a besieged, a beleaguered Prime Minister to continue his rule. And this is, this is what is happening in the country, and this is, I think, the danger. Apart from the white powers that I'm sure some of my colleagues would be explaining later. But this is, I think, the major thing. I mean, as a system, we have got this responsible government, where the cabinet is basically the center, not the public servant, not the public service. Because the military and the police, they are part of the public service. They are not elected, and they are just there working on operating under the direction of the elected politician. So that is the system in normal circumstances. So now we have got this NSC bill, which I think, if it is passed by the Dewan Negara and eventually being signed by the Yang Tuan, will become another option for the beleaguered Prime Minister to continue his ways. And this is very bad because we already have this SOSMA. We have seen problem with POTA, and how the insertion of 124B to penal code, our YB here has been, has been, action has been taken against him under this particular, provision for doing allegedly things that said as undermining parliamentary democracy. So this is another a tool available to the Prime Minister. So I think this is something which is which shouldn't be happening. Of course, the problem is when you have got a tariffat government. This is the thing that you have to. That will happen. This is the anywhere in the world that when you have a government that is not sure of itself, that is terrified, that is probably unable to command the support of the population, then this is what they do. They will come up with all sort of regulation, all the sort of decrees, will make use whatever available powers to them to make sure they remain in power. Now I've said a few things of some of the probably possible ways to stop the bill. One of them is, of course, the Dewan Negara, where you have got this provision in the Constitution which allow Dewan Negara, the Senate, to delay the bill for 12 months. Obviously, the Dewan Negara, being unelected as of now, has no power to throw away the bill. Though the Dewan Negara, the Senate, can veto the bill when it comes to amendment of the Constitution, but when it comes to ordinary bill, what it can do is just to delay the bill for 12 months, which, according to the Commission report, is there to allow public discussion, to highlight problems and so on. Of course, when it comes to budget, it can only stop or it can be delayed for just 1 month. But in this particular bill, this type of rang undang-undang, Dewan Negara can stop for 12 months. So I hope with the inclusion of senators from Pakatan Harapan and Pakatan Rakyat, something can be done about it. And now, if they're not strong enough to do it, we pray that the young Tanagong can do something, even though some of you may point out the provision that was put in by Mahathir way back in 1994 to bypass the young Tanagong. But my argument is that was done without the consent of the Conference of Rulers. So there is this question there is doubt of whether this provision is legal or not. So I believe the rulers, with this recent statement on 1MDB, they have their concern, and I think we probably can hope for their good judgment to do something about the bill. Now, if this probably the second thing also doesn't materialize, probably we can hope for the third one, that some people with enough local standard to go to court and put up the argument, the draft of the Constitution, to ask the judges to declare the law as illegal or unconstitutional, because obviously the court has got this inherent power under this check and balance theory, judicial review, to throw away, or rather to stop, or rather to declare the bill as illegal, because it has done away with many main principle pertaining to the notion of responsibility, of accountability of the sitting government to the people. So we believe that I believe with this because the provision are available, so it's up to them. And I think we have come to the crunch. We have come to a point whereby everybody has got to play a role. The Senate, the young Tanagong, and of course the judges. They got to do something to save the country, because I think we have had enough. And I think all these years, for more than we are approaching 60 years anniversary of our independence. In fact, we should stop this, and I think we should no longer. We cannot afford to tolerate this nonsense anymore, because I think we have come to a point whereby this is the fabric, the basic foundation of our constitution, of our democratic constitution or democratic system. We cannot just allow it to just sit back and do nothing about it. And I think this is important for us to make it the public understand, because I think over here people are passionate, you are aware of the repercussion, but I'm afraid out there, I mean, even among some of the educated people, still they don't understand because they are being taken away by this IS, terrorism and so on, which I think is not so much about, I mean, this is not the main thing that, to be dealt with by this. Somebody asked this question whether, I mean, well, I mean, I have to say that everywhere in the world, anywhere in the world, there is this question of ongoing debate about emergency powers, whether, yes, of course, it's necessary to have these powers to protect democracy, but the problem is who is there to judge whether or not there is emergency? And at what point it must stop? And to whom should this power be put in? That is a problem. That is the ongoing debate. There's no question, there's no argument about defending democracy, about defending the system against all this, from terrorism and whatnot, IS, whatever. But the problem is, or rather, we have seen that the moment you give this power to the government, wherever they are, they will find it later that it's hard for them to part with it. It's so sweet, so easy, you know. Because you have seen in Malaysia, they have what they call it, annul the emergency declaration. They have even abolished ISA. But after that, we have seen more and even probably worse laws following. So, and of course, the constitution is not perfect. I think the problem with the constitution is that instead of just putting 150 or 149, the great mistake of the Reid Convention, they allow these two, 149 and 150. Some of the academics pointed out that the problem with this NSC is that it simply doesn't fit into any of this framework laid down by the Constitution. But to me, I think it doesn't matter because you have seen ISA. ISA was enacted, was done under 149, but you have seen how it was implemented. So even when you put this law within this framework, there's no guarantee that it will eventually take care of these human rights. What more when it is done outside that framework? Well, now this is the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul Aziz. And now we'll have YB Hanifah Maidin to take the mic. YB Hanifah, one question that weighs heavily in a lot of people's minds is, how is it that such a heavyweight bill can pass Parliament so quickly? Are there no controls in place to make sure that it's properly debated?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Distinguished speakers and brothers and sisters. Actually, there was an attempt by YB Ling Wan Eng, YAB Ling Wan Eng to refer this bill to the select committee, because after the debate took place at the policy level, so YAB Ling Wan Eng stood up and asked the deputy speaker to refer the matter to the select committee. So normally this kind of bill, we need further elaboration, we need further discussion. Actually, everything was done in rush. Actually, we all the MPs were busy preparing for the debate for the budget. No? Then suddenly 2 days before they tabled this bill was put on our table. So many documents on our table. I myself even didn't notice about this bill. We were not even given a hint that this bill going to be presented. No idea at all. I think even from Barisan Nasional, maybe they also were not aware there was an attempt to introduce this bill. So everything was done discreetly, without consultation. Even when I asked the question to Minister Syahidan Kasim, we call it Minister of Bencana. He was supposed to look after for disaster, but it's like a disastrous minister. Even when he answered, he didn't answer the question. And to be fair to him, he was not legally qualified, so he has no legal background. So whenever he answered, he said, "You have to. This is kehendak Allah, kehendak Tuhan lah. That is nonsense. We have to hear in Parliament, unfortunately. In fact, at one stage he said that this bill was presented not under 149 because there was no emergency. Then he said we presented this bill under Article 74, sub-article 1. Then I stood up and said, every bill in Parliament must be presented under 74.1 because 74 sub-article 1 said that if you want to enact any federal law, you have to go to Parliament. So he should have read. Then YB Govin stood up. He said, if you want to quote article, you should have quoted Article 74, sub-article 3. Because 74, sub-article 3 said that in special circumstances, you have to go to special procedures. For if you want to enact something related to emergency, so you have to go by Article 149 and 150. So that what, at least for POTA, Prevention of Terrorism Act, Prevention of Crime Act, and SOSMA, at least in the act itself, they specifically stated that the acts were enacted pursuant to Article 149. What is so special of enacting a law under Article 149 or 150? Because Article 149 and 150 contains special provision stating that you can ignore certain fundamental rights. You can enact a law under Article 149 and 150. It was specifically stated therein that if you want to have a law infringing Article 5,